The containment cell hummed with the sterile coldness that defined every corner of the Vrix warship. Orla pressed her slender crystalline fingers against the energy barrier, her translucent skin shimmering with patterns that betrayed her fear. The symbols flickered across her body in waves, violet for terror, deep crimson for resignation. Among her people, the Vrix, such displays were involuntary, a biological curse that made deception impossible. She had heard the stories. Every species in the Galactic Council had heard them. Humans were monsters wrapped in flesh, barbarians who had clawed their way from a death world into the stars. They felt no empathy, showed no mercy. When they took prisoners, torture followed. When they conquered, only ashes remained, and now one was coming for her. The corridor beyond her cell echoed with the heavy footfalls of Vrix guards retreating. They had abandoned their posts the moment the distress call confirmed a human vessel had boarded. Cowards, Orla thought bitterly, though she couldn't blame them. If she could run, she would. The door hissed open. He was smaller than she expected. Most species in the galaxy towered over humans, and Orla was no exception at nearly 8 feet tall. But Riza, she had glimpsed his name on the tactical display before the systems failed, moved with a predator's economy. Dark eyes scanned the room, calculating, assessing. His combat armor was scratched and scorched, evidence of the firefight that had torn through the ship's upper decks. Orla's patterns erupted in desperate plum and black, the colors of imminent death. She had seen the footage from the Krennic's front. Humans didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners for exchange. They took them to extract information through methods that made even the most hardened warriors recoil. Riza's gaze locked onto her, and Orla felt her 3 hearts hammering in discordant rhythm. She tried to speak, to beg, but her translator implant had been damaged in the initial attack. Only a melodic warble emerged from her throat. The human raised his weapon. This was it. The end. Orla closed her eyes, her patterns fading to the pale white of acceptance. But the killing blow never came. Instead, she heard a hiss and a crack. Opening her eyes, she saw the energy barrier flicker and die. Riza had shot the control panel, not her. He lowered his weapon and held up one hand in what Orla's fragmented database suggested was a peaceful gesture. "Easy," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I'm not going to hurt you." Orla didn't understand the words, but something in his tone made her patterns shift to confused amber. Humans didn't show mercy. That was what every intelligence brief had stated. That was what every survivor had testified. Riza reached slowly into a pouch on his belt. Orla flinched, expecting a torture device or a blade. Instead, he produced a medical scanner. He gestured to her arm, where purple blood seeped from a gash she'd received during the battle. The human's brow furrowed. Was that concern? He stepped closer, movements deliberate and non-threatening. Orla's every instinct screamed to flee, but where could she go? The ship was a war zone, and she was unarmed. She stood frozen as Riza knelt beside her, impossibly making himself smaller, less threatening. The scanner's light played across her wound, and Riza muttered something in his language. He pulled out a medical kit and began working. His hands were steady, careful. When he applied the antiseptic, Orla hissed at the sting, and he immediately stopped, waiting for her patterns to settle from pained orange back to uncertain amber before continuing. This made no sense. Where was the cruelty? The violence? The legendary human brutality? Riza wrapped her wound with practiced efficiency, then sat back on his heels. He tapped his own chest. "Riza," he said slowly. Then he pointed to her, eyebrows raised in question. Understanding sparked through her confusion. Orla touched her own chest, her patterns brightening to curious gold. "Orla," she warbled, praying the phonetics translated through tone alone. Riza smiled, actually smiled, and nodded. "Orla, good." He stood and offered his hand. She stared at it, then at his face. His eyes held no malice, no sadistic anticipation, just weariness and something else. Kindness? Tentatively, Orla placed her crystalline hand in his calloused one. He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight when she stumbled. Her patterns exploded in shocked gold and green, colors she hadn't displayed since before the war. Colors of gratitude and hope. Riza led her through the corridors, past the bodies of her former captors. She had been a prisoner here, taken when her science vessel had been captured by Vrix warships 6 cycles ago. The Vrix had planned to execute her for propaganda, And now a human of all beings, was rescuing her. They reached his extraction shuttle where two other humans waited. Both tensed when they saw Orla, weapons half raised, but Riza barked something sharp in human language. They lowered their guns, though their expressions remained wary. During the flight back to the human carrier, Orla watched Riza. He sat across from her, checking and rechecking her bandage, offering her water from his own supply. When turbulence made her patterns spike with fear, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The galaxy had been wrong. So catastrophically wrong. Humans weren't monsters who tortured prisoners. They were warriors who showed mercy. They were protectors who healed the wounded. They were people who saw others as people, even across the vast gulf of species. When they docked with the human vessel, medical staff rushed forward with alien-compatible equipment. As they led her to the medical bay, Orla looked back at Riza. Her entire body glowed with brilliant blue, the Vrix color for profound respect and gratitude. Riza simply nodded, a small smile on his scarred face before turning to rejoin his squad. Orla had expected death from the human. Instead, she had been given something far more valuable: hope that in this war-torn galaxy, compassion could still exist. And if humans, the alleged monsters of the cosmos, could show such mercy, perhaps peace wasn't as impossible as everyone believed. Perhaps humanity's real strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but their unexpected capacity for kindness in the darkest of times. The end.